Okay, so welcome to our revision session for elements of costing. My name's Catherine and I'm going to be the tutor that goes through the session with you tonight. We're going to be having a look at quite a popular topic this evening, one that is often in need of revision, and that is to look at labour costs. So looking at the different pay rates and also having a look at some things like bonus payments and overtime. So quite a few things to be having a look at. But I thought the best place we could start would be to have a look at the examiner's report, which is always worth looking at and is available on AAT's website in their learning portal. So we'll have a look at that, because what we're going to be looking at tonight is this task. So task 4, in fact, I'm going to just highlight that in a different way. Oh, let's get rid of that. Okay, there we go. And we'll highlight it like that. So this is the task that we're going to be looking at. And you can see that the performance is it's the worst performing task on this exam. I think there's various reasons for that, but we will have a look at that a bit more in depth, because it's very much 50-50 as to whether people do well on this or not. It's worth highlighting that there's only 8 marks available for this task, so you can't get exceeded on it. So it's either you get the marks or you don't, sort of thing. We're not grading it in massive amount of detail, but yes, it's very much either a met or a below requirement on that one. So yeah, in terms of what is actually asked, because the examiner's report, for those of you who may or may not have, well, if you've not looked at it before, it breaks down each task and gives you some ideas of what is covered, what is done well, what is not done well. I can't really get this all on one page. Let me just see. I just zoom out a little bit. There we go, that's better. So, as I say, this is the task we're looking at. We're looking at labour payments. You're going to be doing calculations on different rates of pay, overtime, bonuses, that sort of thing. The calculations themselves are they're not awful. I think it's just making sure that you're, like with a lot of things, you are dealing with the question that's asked rather than what you think it is. Okay. You've not got a lot of time for this, 7 minutes, and it's usually 8 marks, so just under a minute per mark, really. And yeah, you can see it's very much a 50-50. You either get it right or you don't on a lot of these. There are good things about it. We're very, very good at doing a lot of the calculation bits, but often it's the overtime where the issues arise. So it's really important that for those overtime calculations, you're doing the right thing. And you're checking it as well, because a lot of these errors, things that are totaled correctly, well, that is an easy one. Sorry, someone's just asked where can they find it on the AAT website. So it's on the lifelong learning portal, and if you go to the elements of costing section on that, then there's actually a section at the very bottom that says examiner report, and you can find it on there. You can download it, and it's updated every year. So this one relates to 2021 and all of the assessments that were sat in that period. So hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, it's really useful piece of useful tool rather that you can use. As we've said, this task is the one that people seem to perform. It is the weakest task on the exam, which is a shame, because it is a really nice. The calculations aren't awful. I think there's calculations that are worse on this exam, but for some reason people don't really like this one or don't do well on it. So I thought we would do, now that we've had a brief look at that examiner's report, is to have a look at, first of all, a task briefing so we can see in a bit more detail what is involved here, and also then have a look at some practice questions and the types of questions that you may be asked on the exam. So have a look at the task briefing first of all. So again, a lot of this is similar to what we were saying on the exam report. It's asking about, well, talks about different methods of payment or different ways of calculating pay. I know you've heard about time rate method, which is mentioned here. There we go, time rate method, and also piecework method. Can anybody tell me the differences between those two, or give me a definition of one over the other, just so I can see that we're okay with the understanding on that? I'll give you a chance to write that in the chat box, or at least have a think about it. And if not, then I will fill you in. Yeah. I don't know whether anybody's going to be forthcoming on this. So the difference that you've got is that, oh, there we go. Yes, lovely. So someone has come up and said that piecework is about units produced. Apologies for my writing. So yes, with piecework, you're paid on a per unit basis. So if you are paid, I don't know, £5 per dress that you sew up and produce, every dress you would get £5, and it would, regardless of how long it takes you. So with this sort of, the quicker you are, the more money you're going to get. So it's in a way, it's probably not the most common method of payment, and a lot of you will be much more familiar with the other method that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But piecework does exist. In terms of time rate, I've noticed that somebody said that time rate is more of a per hour thing. I'll just try and bring that down there. So yeah, time rate is like hourly pay. So you work a 40-hour week and you get paid £10 per hour. And it doesn't matter how productive you are or how much work you do in those 40 hours, you will get paid that guaranteed amount of money at the end of the week or the end of the month, regardless of what you produce. The other thing, so yes, we've got a little bit more information here, just to kind of flesh that out. So as a reminder, so if you're based on hours, that is your time rate remuneration. So you might say an employee works 40 hours and is paid £10 an hour, as we were saying. It may be that they will get some overtime if it's available, and that overtime is paid at a higher rate to encourage the employees to want to work those extra hours. So it might be that you're asked to calculate sort of a basic wage and then some overtime. And it's really important that if they ask you to split it, that you do that, okay? Usually they will give you a table to fill in. And that is quite clearly very much that you've got a column for basic hours or basic pay, and then a column for overtime. And more often than not, you will then be asked to total them up. So basic hours plus overtime hours. And that, I think, is where some of the issues come up with incorrect calculations, because a figure gets entered into the calculator incorrectly or something like that. So yeah, important to be checking your workings and checking your figures and that sort of thing. So that's time rate. Piecework, again, like we were saying, you're paid for each unit produced. The other element of piecework that you've got is where bonuses come in. Okay, so you might say that if you achieve over a certain target in terms of production, you'll get a bonus, a nice little bit of extra pay. And this is something that you might be used to from work, those of you who are working maybe in a sort of production area job, that you've got, maybe get an extra pound for every extra unit that you produce over a certain level. And again, there are questions related to that in the exam, and we will have a look at some questions like that later on. A lot of them form around the idea of checking that employees have been paid the right amount based on what they've produced and what they would get as a bonus if they did go over the expected level. And a lot of that, again, is about checking and being thorough with your calculations. So yeah, I mean, as I said before, this is quite a straightforward task. It's about being thorough, doing those calculations and checking them. But it does require you to know sort of the different methods, how they work, and in some cases how they fit together. How you can have a job which is mainly time rate, but you've got a piecework element on top with that performance bonus. Usually in this task as well, they may throw in some true or false or ticking the box questions at the end that ask about your knowledge of time rate and piecework. So again, it's just not just doing the calculations, it's being able to show that you understand the difference between the two and the elements of those two things. Okay. So as we said, you may have to combine your time rate stuff with your piecework stuff on the bonuses. Okay, so we will have a look at questions like this, but just to highlight again for these bits that are important. If you're doing time rate, you're looking at multiplication of hours by an hourly rate. So really nice, easy, those are basic multiplication, which is lovely. They won't do anything difficult. They won't give you different rates of pay. It will be one set rate. And that's really, really nice. When you're looking at bonuses, there's going to be a little bit of multiplication again, potentially, to see how many units over the expected level they've produced, and then multiplying that up by the bonus rate per unit. And again, it might be that you're doing a bit of comparison of the number of units that the employee has produced against that target based on the number of hours worked. So again, bringing in that piecework versus time rate element. Okay, and a lot of that will be you checking, and we'll do a lot of questions like that. You will need to show your knowledge in a particular knowledge task, as I was saying, about how piecework is different from time rate. Okay, so how it affects what you might earn. So that's the slower you are, the less you're going to get. And yeah, whereas with time rate, it doesn't matter how slow you are or how quick you are, although you might get a bonus if you're very, very quick. So yeah, so I think that gives you a good idea of what is involved. So I think we will move on to the calculations. I've done quite a bit of talking, but I hope that these questions that we're going to have a look at now will give you a good idea of the flavour and the type of questions that you're going to get asked. And I'm really happy if you want to get the calculators out and have a go along with me. That is definitely what this session is about. So as a nice run-in, we've got some true or false questions to start off with. We're given quite a bit of information. So we're told that we've got a particular and one employee to worry about. They are paid £10 an hour, and that's our time rate. Excellent, they get £10 an hour for whatever they do, although they are expected to make 10 units an hour. Okay. If they manage to go over that 10 units an hour, then they will get a very nice bonus of £1 per unit. So we're going to be having to factor all of these things in and decide whether the employee is being paid correctly or not in these three different scenarios. Okay. So to start off with, we are told that they have worked a 40-hour week and they've produced 410 units and they've got a bonus. So we're just deciding whether they have done enough. I will go through this first one with you before I ask sort of any input, but then as we move on the second and third ones, then I'll maybe ask you to start thinking about it a bit earlier. So the first thing that I would do on a question like this is I would look at the hours that they've worked. We've got that. And how many units they have produced. And then I would be looking to see how many they should have produced and whether they are over or under that. Okay. So we've got a 40-hour week, and we know from the top here that they are expected to make 10 units an hour. So it's a nice, easy calculation to see how many units they should have produced over that week. We'll do 40 hours times by the 10 units per hour, which gives us, oh, sorry, that's decided to erase on me, gives us 400. So in that 40-hour week, they should have produced 400 units. Is that okay? You can see where I've got that from, I hope. We're told that they have received a bonus, okay, and they have produced 410 units. And is that correct? Okay, so they should have produced a minimum of 400, and they've actually produced 410. So they have done more than was the minimum expectation. So we would expect that they would receive some sort of bonus for those extra 10 units. So that would be, we've got an extra 10 units. I'll just do it here as an X so you can see. So we've got 10 units times by the £1 bonus, we get a nice £10 bonus. So yes, it is true, they should receive a bonus. Yeah, that's all correct. Okay. If at any point you're not sure, then just pop in the chat box that you're not following, and I can help with that. So we'll have a look at this second one. So we've now got a situation where we're dropping the hours. We've got a 35-hour week, and the employee has produced 360 units, and they've received a bonus of £10. So we're getting a little bit more in depth now. We're actually told how much bonus they've got. So we've got to weigh up whether that was the correct level of bonus, whether it should have been paid or not. So again, we'll do similar calculations to before. We've got 35 hours, and again, it's the expectation to make 10 units per hour. So their minimum should be 350 units, which they've met. They've gone above that. They've gone above and beyond, and they've produced 360. So we know that they've got a bonus coming. And very similarly to that first one, they've produced 10 units more. So again, it's that, oh, gosh, I always seem to be hitting my eraser by accident. It's that 10 units extra times by the £1 bonus. So they do get a bonus of £10 again. So that's another true one. Yeah, so that was nice and straightforward. So this now ratchets it up a little bit more. We've got another situation. We've got a change of hours again, 38-hour week, and they've produced 400 units. Now, they're asking for something slightly different here. They're asking for total pay. I want to do a different colour because total pay of £400. We've got to take into account their time rate, and if they need a bonus, how much in terms of bonus they're going to get. So again, we'll do our very straightforward calculation to start. They've worked a 38-hour week. They've done a minimum 10 units an hour, we hope. So they should have done 380 units in that 38-hour period. So we've actually got 400 units. So I'm going to run out a little bit of space here, but I'll do it here. So they've got 400 that they've made minus the 380 minimum. So they've done 20 units extra. So that will give them a £20 bonus, because £20 times £1 per unit. Right, we've now got to think about, and I'll do it up on this right hand side here, about what their total pay is going to be. So again, a bit similar to what we've done here, actually. I'll use this because this is probably it's a very similar thing to what we're doing. If we just think that that is, rather than it being 10 units an hour, it's actually going to be 38 times £10. That's going to be £380 plus our, come over here now, 380 plus our £20 bonus gives us, oh look, £400. So actually that one is true as well. We've got a full set there of true answers. Okay, that's quite a standard question that may get asked on this. So we'll have a look at maybe a slightly more tricky one. I'm hoping I'm going to have enough space for this. So we'll focus on B and ignore my scrawls around it. So again, we've got a very, very nice and straightforward rate of a business paying £10 per hour for a standard 35-hour week. So that is our time rate element. Any of the labour force, if they work, any of the workers, if they work more than 35 hours, they'll get some overtime. And as we said before, we get £15 per hour on overtime. We get more because it's an incentive to work the overtime. So we need to be doing calculations based on what the employees have worked. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, because the hours that they work are over and above the minimum. So like, for example, if we look at this first one, YQ, they've worked 40 hours in total. So what that means is we've got 35 standard plus 5 of overtime. Okay, so we've got 35 hours at basic wage and 5 hours at overtime wage. We can do a quick and easy calculation at the top here to get the basic wage for all workers. So it's 35 hours a week times by £10. So they're all going to get £350 a week. So for YQ, we know that their basic wage is £350. The overtime calculation becomes a bit more tricky. I'll do it over here on this left-hand side. We've got 5 hours of overtime multiplied by the £15 basic wage. I'll just double check that on my calculator. Oh, would help if I did the right thing. So I make that £75 of overtime. Yeah, I'll happily, if anyone wants to disagree with me, I will take it. Oh, get rid of that. Okay. And then we can add those together. And I make that 425. If we look at GJ, the second employee now, they've done 43 hours. So again, we've got that 35 hours basic pay that everybody does, basic hours that everybody works. And then we've got another 8 hours. Okay, 35, so 43 minus 35 gives us 8. Okay, so a slightly different calculation here. We can use the basic wage again, so we know we've got £350 basic wage, and then we need to work out the overtime. This time we've got 8 hours and we'll multiply that by our overtime rate again. So we do 8 times 15, which is £120. Ooh, that's a 2, there we go. So we'll pop that into our table, 120, oh, sorry, that is a 0, I just can't write very well. And then we'll do 350 plus 120, and that gives us 470. Hoping everything is going okay so far. No one has shouted and said, I don't get it. So hopefully that is all okay. Hoping to try and get through the other 2 questions. We'll definitely do this part C, and then I'll run through part D as well, and might be a little bit over time. We've got a similar question on this one, so let's just have a different colour. So we've got, again, that mix of time rate method and a little bit of bonus as well. Okay, so we've got time rate method, and it's going to be looking at £10 per hour basic, and there's an expectation that 20 units an hour is produced. Okay, so we're amalgamating that, but they will still get their basic wage, whatever. If they work over the minimum expectation, they get a bonus of 50p per unit. When it says 50p per unit, that means the units above the minimum. Okay, so that's something else that can trip students up, that they will do a bonus on all of it, but it's just the oh, sorry, that's not what we want. Not this one. I'm trying to get over to the pen. Okay, so we've got our first worker, which is exciting. Some good names here. They've worked 35 hours and they've produced 690 units. So if we have a look and do a few calculations, I'm just going to use this units produced table, so cell rather, so you can see. So they, for 35 hours at 20 units an hour, we would assume that they need to produce, so that means that they need to produce a minimum of 700. Okay, they've only produced 690, so they aren't getting a bonus because they haven't met the minimum requirement. Okay. So they just get their basic wage, and funnily enough, it's very, very similar to what we had before. So 35 hours times £10 an hour, or which, similar to before, is £350. They don't get a bonus because we didn't make the grade on that, so we've just got a wage of 350. Okay, so we've got the next one, T for Lynn. Again, we're looking at this same, actually it's funny if I could have done that elsewhere, but everybody is working towards this. No, they're not. Excuse me on that one. They're not working towards that, so I'm going to do something quite different on this one. Apologies. They've worked 37 hours, so we've got to do a little bit of a different calculation. We're still working towards that £20 per hour. So on that, we have back. So they were working towards a minimum of 740 units over that time period. They've done 750, so they've got 10 more. They're going to get a basic wage of £370, 37 times 10, and we need to think about what bonus they're going to get. They've done 750 units, 740 was their minimum, they've got 10 more, and they get 50p per unit, so 10 times 0.5. By my reckoning, it should be £5. Yes, just checking that. They get £5 bonus, add them together, £375. For our final one, F-un or fun, they have worked 40 hours, so they've done even more. And they're still required to do 20 units per hour. So my calculation, that should be 800 units overall. They've done 828, so they're going to be getting a bonus for those extra units. They've done 28 extra. Okay. So we'll remember that for later. So we've got, first of all, their basic, £40, so 40 hours times £10. So we've got £400 there. We're going to get a bonus on those 28 extra units. Okay, oh, sorry, we'll just put that not in there so you can see that it's 0.5, so that should be £14. Okay, so that gives us a total of 414. So yeah, that's probably the most difficult type of calculation question that you might get on an exam. You can see there's quite a few different things going on there. I've got one more I just want to talk about, because again, this is about doing the understanding. So I will run through this with you and then that will be all for this evening. Okay. So we're told at the start of this question that it's about piecework. Okay, so we've got to get our piecework head on and think, right, what are we asking about with this? We've got some true or false, and some of it is going to be doing some calculations, but not to the level that we did in the previous question. Okay. So our first true or false statement is that with piecework, employees' pay will increase if more units are produced. Okay. Now, what do we know about piecework? We are paid per unit. Yeah. So I would say that that is a true statement. If anyone wants to disagree with me, I'll I'll wait to see. But I would say that the more units you produce under piecework, the more you're going to get paid. So that is a true statement. The second one, we are looking at calculation. So an employee is paid 50p per unit and they earn £120 for the production of 240 units. We've got our important information highlighted there. Now, if I do, I'm always hitting that erase button by accident. If I do 240 times by 50p, so 0.5, I think that that comes to 120. Yeah. I will just double check on my calculator, which is always wise, but yes, it agrees with me. So yeah, that is a true statement. Okay, so next one is an employee who's paid £400 for the production of 800 units is paid £2 per unit. A bit dubious on this one. We'll do the calculations in a similar way. We're looking at those units and the per unit element. So if I do 800 times 2, I would get 1600. Yeah, so that's actually an incorrect answer. So it would be false. If they were paid 50p per unit, then they would get £400, but they're being paid £2, so they could get a lot more than that. So the final point is more of that general knowledge of piecework. So it says employees paid on a piecework basis will always earn an agreed total amount of pay. So whatever they do, they will always receive a certain minimum amount of payment. We know that is not true because it's payment on results. So actually what they're talking about there, that is your time rate. Okay, so that is a false. Okay, so that gives you, that's our end bit there, that gives you an idea of the sorts of questions that you might see on this type of task in the exam. I hope that's been useful. I hope you've enjoyed the session.